What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I help you guys keep on top of the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony. As you can see, I am still on vacation in beautiful New Zealand. I've been surfing, I've been swimming. It's been absolutely lovely. I hadn't planned on putting any videos up while I'm on vacation, but there's just so much going on. I've had so many questions, and I'm going to put up another quick update, primarily looking at the coronavirus and some of the salient points that you guys need to know about, so you're abreast of the issue. Because I'm not back in China at the moment, because I'm here in this beach house closet essentially, video is a little bit funny in the background and the audio is probably not too good. Sorry about that, guys, but hopefully I can get to some of the questions that I've had sent to me regarding the current situation with the novel coronavirus. If you're watching this for the first time, typically I put up a proper episode once a week. It's normally 15 to 25 minutes, looking at the biggest macro developments coming out of China. This is a little bit different to what we normally do. I'm trying to get back to China now. My flight was supposed to leave on Monday. That's been cancelled. I've had to change 4 flights. I'm going to fly into South Korea. I'm going to be in South Korea for a few days and then try and fly from South Korea into Hangzhou, where my company is, where I work. Get back there, but I found out yesterday that Hangzhou is one of the new cities in Zhejiang province that has been closed off and is basically under shutdown. The degree of the shutdown is not as intense as Wuhan or Hubei, the province where the coronavirus was first discovered, but it is quite intense. Despite that, I'm still trying to get into my city. Everyone is saying that I'm crazy. If you guys think I'm crazy for trying to get back into China, that I should stay here, you can comment below and tell me I'm out of my mind, but I still think that it's manageable and that I want to get back into the country and get back to work. So on that note, if you're living outside of China and you're worried about this, honestly, the risk for you guys is super, super low. For me, I want to get back into China, and I think you can manage the risk there. So it's not really a big deal. The fatality rate is quite low. It's hovering just above 2%, which is like 3 to 4 times smaller than the fatality rate for SARS back in 2003. So it's quite a low fatality. In fact, the highest fatality rate, which is hovering around 4%, is in Wuhan itself. And a lot of that, the issues with the fatality there are based on the fact that they're running short on supplies at the moment, and so it's exacerbating the issue for those who have the more acute form of the virus in the hospitals. Okay, so as of the filming of this, I'm going to film this and quickly put it up because this is just a quick update. The deaths just under 600. The cases is just below 30,000, and suspected cases is about 25,000. These numbers are actually probably much bigger. Some have accused the government of not releasing correct numbers. That's not an unreasonable accusation to make. To be quite frank, there is plenty of evidence to suggest that deaths and cases are much higher. Even if they were accurate, there seems to be a 1 to 2 day delay in updating the amount of people that have the virus. And part of this is because in the earlier days, it was very, very difficult to have enough kits. There was a shortage of the testing kits. And so those who had the most severe symptoms were prioritized, with those who had minor symptoms or no symptoms being sent home and then coming back when they became more intense. So that number is going to continue to increase quite rapidly. We're going to see over the next couple of weeks more and more cases coming out. Not because they're not getting a handle on the situation, although the situation as of this moment is still a little bit out of control. The government hasn't got a handle on it, but mostly because what we're going to see now is many migrant workers coming back to cities slowly. They're not all coming back all at once, but people will start slowly coming back. And because this coronavirus has a 2-week incubation period, it means that people might not be showing symptoms until a week or 2 weeks from now. So it will be at least a couple of weeks before we get any idea just how big the problem is, what the growth rate is like, if there's any changes in the fatality rate, whether there's been any additional mutations. But speaking of people coming back, the government has essentially put the entire country, or about 80% worth of GDP of the country, on an extended holiday to at least the 10th. Many other places, including my home city, are going to the 17th. Before you can go back to work. And it looks like a lot of migrant workers have decided to not go back to these cities yet. So for example, Beijing, which typically has a population of 23 to 30 million people, depending on where you are, how you measure population, they had about 10 million migrant workers return to their to the countryside or to lower tier cities where their family are to celebrate the Lunar or the Chinese New Year. Out of that 10 million, only about 2 million have returned. So you've got about 8 million as of the filming of this staying away. Also today, it was announced that Beijing might be considering postponing the Lianghui, or the two meetings. This is a major political meeting that happens in Beijing. It's quite an important meeting, and it looks like that might be postponed. This was supposed to be held in March. Now, if they're thinking of postponing that meeting, it suggests that the government is not confident that it can have the situation under control by March. That's about a month from now. So if that is postponed, it is a signal that the government believes it's going to take at least a month before they can put a slowdown on those number increases and get this outbreak under control. So that is somewhat concerning. Another story from today that you may have seen a lot in Western media is the death of one of the original whistleblowers, the Dr. Li Wenliang. So if you watched the last episode that I released when I was talking about the coronavirus, I actually mentioned Dr. Li and said he was one of the original whistleblowers who brought to the attention of his colleagues and the authorities on the 30th, as early as the 30th of December, that he had identified a SARS-like virus that had the potential to have human-to-human transmissions, and that on, I believe, the 3rd or the 5th of January, he was arrested by police and reprimanded for spreading rumors. So he was a whistleblower who was arrested by local authorities for trying to sound the alarm. And of course, the alarm wasn't sounded properly until the 20th of January, and Wuhan, the city affected, and the province Hubei were not put on lockdown until about the 23rd of January. So almost 4 weeks in advance, this doctor had sounded the alarm. Well, he died today, and that was it's been in Western media, and it was actually initially in Chinese media until it was taken down. It is now being re-reported, but there was a period of about 12 hours where the government was censoring the announcement of his death, which is very showing. There's been many cases when the Western media will look at a story about how Chinese netizens or regular Chinese people are angry about the government. In this case, however, I think it's actually it's been underreported just how angry this event, or how upsetting this event has been to a lot of Chinese. I can say anecdotally, based on, like, I'm on Chinese social media, I have lots of Chinese friends, I read their rules, their posts and all that sort of stuff. People are very, very upset about the death of this doctor. He's seen almost like a martyr figure, a symbol of like a martyr or a tragic hero who, in the face of the government incompetence, essentially tried to warn regular Chinese people. He's seen as like a people's hero, and one of the symbols of this episode that's been happening in China throughout this period. So it's this here is an interesting story, I think, and the fact that his death was originally censored, I think, is a sign that the government recognizes that he has the symbolic presence. What's really interesting for those of you who can't read or speak Mandarin, his name is Li Wenliang. And that liang means bright or to shine, but it can also mean to illuminate or reveal. So I think it's actually very sweet that his very name, his first name, Liang, has to reveal, or the character to shed a light on or to reveal something in his name. So it's very, very beautiful sort of coincidence, I guess, with his name. Something else to discuss this week, it seems that Chinese censors are in overdrive to control the narrative about what is happening in Wuhan. This narrative is basically that the government is on top of it, that this is a major issue and a major challenge the Chinese people are facing, and that they have to battle this. It's like very warlike rhetoric, but that the government is there to help the people, that it's been directed by the central government, particularly Xi Jinping, who actually was not in the media very much until yesterday, when there was finally, after about a week, a story about Xi Jinping where you can actually see image of him. But this seems to be the primary narrative. There's been a lot of stories about censorship and the attempt of censors to keep on top of a lot of so-called rumors that were going around the internet on social media platforms. The CAC, the Cyberspace Administration of China, essentially the central agency that's in charge of censorship, particularly over social media platforms, said that top companies that own leading social media platforms in China, like Tencent for WeChat, ByteDance for TikTok, as well as the company that owns Sina Weibo, which is a Twitter-like social media platform. It is said that these companies and these platforms are under what they call 专项督导, or special control or special supervision, which means that there is a greater level of scrutiny on these institutions, which typically already have a lot of self-censorship, but there's extra scrutiny on them this week to ensure that they're pushing the correct narrative from the central government. The government seems to be particularly concerned about rumors spinning out of control or information that they don't want out being released to the general public. They've identified this as a political task, and they recognize that there is issues of social instability if the narrative is not controlled. This is a very common practice within Chinese governance models, so it's not surprising here. You can see, though, the intensity and the strain that's going to be put on some of these censorship institutions and agencies as they try and deal with this. In fact, there was a story today about a cyber police officer who's in charge of manually checking problematic messages that are identified through algorithms, social media platforms. This officer worked so long without resting that they died on the job. There's also going to be massive economic consequences because of this. If you're interested in a breakdown of some of the main economic concerns, I actually talk about them in the last episode, so click on that. Talk about stocks, I talk about the labor market, I talk about economic slowdown, but I also talk about a very serious issue, which is food inflation and food shortage, which is going to continue to be a serious issue. Going into this crisis, there were already historically high protein food prices. This was being led by pork inflation, which was up about 100% on year-on-year prices. In December of last year, food inflation was about 20% year-on-year, which had led to a 4.5% general inflation rate year-on-year in December. So you already saw a food shortage or a pork shortage going into this crisis. There are now stories that suggest that there could potentially be an issue with chicken. There is the bird flu, which might not necessarily be under control, which could result in the deaths of millions and millions of chickens. But also it seems that there is difficulty getting soy feed to chickens to feed them, and if this logistics issue cannot be sorted out, it's going to result in the death of tens of millions of chickens. That sort of sounds funny, but it's actually incredibly serious. If you already have a pork shortage and then a chicken shortage, then you're going to have massive food inflation. This is going to be exacerbated by the fact that a lot of logistics has been slowed down, the cost has increased, which is putting strain on getting food to where it needs to go to feed people. So you could see short to medium shocks, food shortages, and massive spikes in prices in places around the country. This causes social instability, and it's just not good for the general well-being of the economy. But like I said, I would highly recommend looking at the last episode if you're interested in the political fallout of this and what the economic consequences of this are going to be. Now I'm going to leave it here for the corona stuff. I'm actually decided that I think I'm going to do another episode later in the week talking about some main China stories that aren't directly related to corona, like for example the Chinese removing tariffs on or reducing tariffs on American goods, which is a big deal. They've cut tariffs in half on about 75 billion of American goods. So this is part of the phase 1 trade agreement. I'm going to do a separate video about that sort of stuff because I think people who click on this are more interested in the coronavirus updates. Now I'm following this very carefully because I have to for my job. I'm reading reports every day in English and in Chinese, and I'm following it very closely. So if you have any questions, there are so many angles you can look at this story from. If you have any questions, put them below. I can either answer you directly or I can do another video like this, maybe in a couple of days, just updating the situation again. There is, like I said, I could put an hour down. I could do an hour video talking about all the different dimensions of this. So I just want to know what you guys are most concerned about. It's hard for me to know exactly what people are most interested in because I live and breathe this China stuff all the time. So you tell me what you need to know or what you're interested in, or if you disagree with any of the stuff I've said here, you think that my analysis has been incorrect, let me know below. I will see you guys with another China update, Corona special in a couple of days. Until then, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.